correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome back to the How We Roll Gaming podcast, everyone. We hope that you have had a good couple of weeks since the last episode. We have Robert out this episode as he finishes prep to move, but we're going to have a few helping hands throughout the episode to help Nick and I with some of the heavy lifting. But meanwhile, what have you been doing since the last episode, Nick?
I've been
Has an evil GM killed you in a game?
I wouldn't say an evil GM, but I may have racked up another player character death.
Is this your second player character death in Walking Dead, Nick?
Yes, but overall, I think I'm getting close to finishing out my punch card.
And how many sessions has it been?
It's been
Four sessions and a session 0 prologue. When did your first player character go out?
Session 0?
I mean, I felt bad about that, but you did come prepared with 3 characters because it is Walking Dead. Not only you, but there was another player who we joked that they made a big backstory revelation and had an emotional catharsis. Oh, and then they went out too.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do that in The Walking Dead.
That's how you know that
That's asking for it. That's just asking for it.
It really is. But yeah, beyond that, finishing up a couple games and getting ready for this next month, and even some planning for the coming month for games that we're going to be doing.
Right on.
And I caught up. I recently finished the last season of Squid Games. I really enjoyed it.
Good.
And I even saw. We rented it a bit earlier before the show. I saw Predator, Killer of Killers, and really excited where they're going with the franchise.
It was some cool stuff. I have caught up on Invincible season 3.
Oh, what did you think?
It was good. It was a lot of fun.
Those last 2 episodes.
Adam Eve went full Phoenix.
Basically.
She went full Jean Grey. I've finished the High Republic Phase 3 original audio drama, Tempest Breaker, and I just started the final YA book in High Republic. So I'm in the home stretch of reading the High Republic. And
and I gave you, for your birthday, I gave you the Acolyte visual dictionary.
Yes, which is awesome. Thank you again.
Lots of interesting details in there. I'm still picking through them myself.
And then, kind of relevant to our little podcast here, since we last recorded, we had free RPG Day, and we got a bunch of cool stuff there. But I kept hearing really good things. I mentioned it last episode, hearing really good things about Daggerheart, and finally decided to pull the trigger. I checked a couple of local game stores because support your friendly local game store, everyone. But they were sold out, so I pulled the trigger, ordered it off of the evil online marketplace named after a rainforest. I was very pleasantly surprised. I ordered it last Friday within minutes of walking out of the last local game store that I tried, and they were sold out. And the delivery window was about a week later. Then 2 days later, I got an update that it would be within the next 4 days. And then 2-3 days later, it showed up at my door. So I will be diving into this shortly. I'll be diving into Daggerheart. Our friend GM Chris says that he is loving the system, that it's the most narrative system he's ever read, with a dual axis of resolution that uses traditional dice. In the credits page, it lists Genesis out as being a major inspiration for the game.
It is another classic in those areas of narrative-based role-playing games.
I'm looking forward to diving into that. Just looking at the layout and book design of it, they have done an incredible job. So now it's time to dive into the content. Speaking of diving into content, though, before we dive into our content, we need to take care of some network business.
Yes, we mentioned a couple episodes ago that some new shows have joined the D20 radio network. One of these new shows is I Should Roll. We should really do a crossover with them. The naming would be crazy.
It would. I Should Roll is an actual play podcast set in the Mass Effect universe, and it uses a homebrew system that's kind of a mix of D&D 5e, Blades in the Dark, Fate, and a few other systems mechanics, including their own homebrew. They currently have 2 long-form campaigns running, Ride of the Valkyrie, which is set in 2184, and I'm saying this as it's written, Dangerous Dangers, set in 2189. You can find more information on their site, which is simply ishouldroll.com, and get their podcast through your preferred podcast platform.
I, I'm actually interested in listening in on that as a fan of the Mass Effect stuff universe. Really cool.
Give them a go. Give them a go. This episode of our podcast is the next in our RPG Glory Stories series. Now, RPG horror stories are all over the internet. They're a dime a dozen. And we wanted to focus on the positive when something awesome happens at a table.
Last time around, we focused on moments that made us proud as GMs. Since we're one GM down, we wanted to give some voice to the players here to tell some of their favorite RPG glory stories, which are some that we also value as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And first up is one of our regular players and my favorite bringer of RPG shenanigans, Betsy. Hello, Betsy, and welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Not much.
Betsy!
Ha, Nick, Daryl said I'm his favorite.
Yes, listeners of our sister podcast, Casual Nerdity, are familiar with Betsy's voice because she has joined us for several Clone Wars arcs in our Clone Watch series.
You mean the ones I bullied my way into?
I was trying to be nice about it.
No, you can be honest. I bullied my way in there.
This is true.
I
This
made a
is
list
true.
of demands for which episodes I would be there for.
She made a list of demands. It was
And the last arc, I did give some respect to your girl and to the boys.
As you should.
The list of demands that Betsy gave us were, in letters that were cut out from magazines and newspapers and handed
Signed
to
with
us.
the blood of, my enemies and...
Yeah, we took it seriously. We took it very, very seriously.
And you let me make your last episode, how long was it? Over 2 hours, I think?
2.5 hours for about 66 minutes of
Oh,
animated
hello.
series content.
We contributed to both of that runtime.
That's true.
That is very true. But when we put out a request to our players saying, we want to hear your RPG glory stories, Betsy was like, ooh, I've got one.
I thought it was more akin to the little bat creature from New Hope.
No, that's the sound I make when I'm trying to reach something that's across the table.
That's true.
Complete with the grabby hands.
Yep. I mean, I was making grabby hands when I saw the Amazon guy showing up with Daggerheart the other day. He's like, But Betsy,
Yes.
what is your RPG glory story?
The floor is yours.
All right.
Take it away.
Well, I mean, you were there when we were talking about this, and I was trying to figure out what my glory story would be. Because, when I was on the spot, like trying to come up with something, I just could not think of anything, even though I knew there were probably a bajillion different examples. But the one that suddenly came to mind is from our D&D game.
Do tell. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've mentioned that game before on the show,
Oh, so
which
you've mentioned the Hopeless Situation Warriors.
yes, we've mentioned how we totally derailed Nick's initial concept for the campaign and bullied him into letting us be the hopeless situation warriors.
But feel free to, if you require me to add in a context before the story, again, let you start it, and then if you need context from me as the GM, because I'm the one running it, I can add additional context.
Actually, you know what? Before I tell the story, why don't you explain where you found the creature, the fake creature that existed? Because that was all you.
As a
Yes.
not a surprise to probably anyone online, I'm a person who uses Reddit. That comes of its
No.
own sort of like stigmas and stuff, but like I'm a proud Redditor. I frequent a lot of like unused subs that have like fun image memes, and I stumbled upon this fun image of a medieval drawing of an unusual creature. No context was given, just sort of a fun. It was this unusual sort of gangly creature that seemed to have like what looked like a series of bullets holes around the image, as if someone had shot it. And the fun image caption below said like, "You got one shot left." And he's like, "This creature seems to move like liquid; it cannot be hit." And it just struck me that like this is a unique creature. I want to use it in a D&D game one day. And that was years prior to this campaign even happening. There's just sort of sat on my phone's like image library until I needed like an event. So that's the origins, and I even talked with friends about it. It's like I don't know, he'd be a fae, and his name would be Grimnal, and that's just sort of been stuck in the background of my mind for a good couple years.
This explains a lot about why your mind is such a scary place.
Oh, wait, does that mean we have to go? I thought you've had a rule about bullying Nick.
No, no.
That's just a fact. That's just a fact.
That's just a fact.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the rule for the show ending when we bully Nick. It's kind of like the rules for slander and libel that that truth is an absolute defense.
Hmm.
So saying that Nick's mind is a scary place is true. So there's an absolute defense. It's not bullying.
And I can confirm yeah.
Fair enough.
But yes, that's the origins of the creature that we're about. That is the key focus of your story.
So, now that Nick has shared the creature he decided to throw at us, let me kind of just describe the event. So, we were camping out, having a long rest. We had been taking turns on watch. I forget where I was in the order, something like third or fourth or somewhere just kind of like right in the middle.
I think you were third.
Yeah, something like that. And our cleric had, put like this nice shield over our whole camp so that nothing could come through and bother us. But anyway, I'm just like chilling, sitting on a rock or something, like staring out, seeing if anything's coming towards us.
Describe your character, and that's kind of important to the nature of the encounter as well too.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. Okay, so anyway, I'm just kind of sitting out on a rock, checking to see if anything's coming by when suddenly something rather horrifying starts strolling up to our camp. And that was Trimble Grimnol. And being a fae, he decided to issue me a challenge. So my character, I'm a shifter and a ranger. I mostly am an archer, so a lot of just like distance stuff. So specifically him challenging me to archery and to see if I could hit him with one of my arrows. I think originally he was going to give me like 3 tries or something. And, you know, as I often say, I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid. I know not to fuck with the fae. So originally I was just going to, dismiss the challenge, but because there was a Fae present and a, weird looking one at that, I'd woken up some of the other players and they'd kind of gathered everybody to come see this thing. There's really
Well,
no
that's
other word for it.
because he's criminal criminal. There's only one of him.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He kept insisting there was only one of him. Well, it just so happens that another one of our player characters, Daryl's wife actually,
Yes. We'll be hearing from her later.
yeah, but she's a changeling. And just for fun, she decided she wanted to change into this thing. Just kind of, it'd be weird and cool, and once she's seen him, she can change into him over and over again in the future if she so wishes. But when she did that, I had an idea.
An awful idea?
An awful idea.
A wonderful, awful idea?
A wonderful, awful idea, and then some. So she, changed back into her normal character, but I just kind of suddenly was like, hey, can you change back into him? And she was like, yeah, sure. Meanwhile, some of the other player characters had kind of been, talking with Trimble Grimbol, which was a serviceable distraction. But anyway, once she turned into him, I brought the conversation back like, okay, anyway, you said you wanted to challenge me to an archery competition. Well, normally I wouldn't accept, but in this case, I think, I'll give it a shot. And made a show of, taking out my bow and one of my arrows. And as I'm holding the arrow, I'm just kind of casually twirling it. And I just so happen to scratch Stephanie, her character, who has still shifted back into Trimble Grimbol. The thing is, though, if he insists there's only one of him, and he can obviously see that I put a mark on him, that more or less fulfills the terms of his challenge.
And again, the nature of the contest was also a play on words. This is like, you have to hit me with your arrow.
And I did. If there's only one of him and, this thing that ostensibly is him was hit by an arrow, that means I won the competition.
Yep.
Long story short, I rules lawyered the Fae.
You rules lawyered and Jim Kirked the Fae.
Very much. And you were rewarded for it. You got magic arrows and you got some pretty good loot.
Yep. It was one of those situations where, Nick, you as the GM just kind of sprung it on us, and I honestly had no plans for doing this until the moment Stephanie's character turned into this guy.
And honestly, if it wasn't your glory story, I would have said it's a glory story because I was impressed by that.
It was awesome. I don't know about the rest of the group, but I was sitting there going, bravo. Bravo.
I saw my opportunity and I took it.
Because that's using the abilities of a player character, your ability, and also, again, you have to rule lawyer a Fae.
And, we are the hopeless situation lawyers on the side.
You also
Yes,
were
we
smart
are.
enough to not even give out your name. You already knew that beforehand, but you made a check for that because you already knew, you were like, what is this thing? It's a Fae. So you knew better than to give your name.
Mm-hmm. From that point, it was just, okay, I will take the terms of your challenge as literally as possible. And you were the one that asserted there's only one of you.
And now that I think about it, it was less that you Jim Kirked it, but you Greg Brady'd it.
Yeah, that's more
Yeah.
correct.
You Greg Brady'd it from that episode where Greg insisted that he and Mike and Carol abide by exact words.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how Fae work especially in D&D. But the main thing was Stephanie realizing that she could do that because I had to look that up first because changelings are Fae adjacent. So I had to be like, okay, let me see, can they change into Fae? And they can. So that was the only thing I had to check on that because otherwise it just is, as you said, rules lawyering against a Fae, but I had to make sure okay, does that make sense? There's only one Frimnal Grimnal, but she can turn into a Frimnal Grimnal.
It was a brilliant gambit. It paid off beautifully. I was sitting there thinking, there's no way this is going to work.
Honestly, I wasn't even sure if it's going to work either, but, I was trying to go by Fae rules. It's very much the letter, not the spirit of the law.
Honestly, behind the scenes, it would have been a 25 to hit, and you would have disadvantage.
So if I'd just gone for it, I probably wouldn't have gotten very far.
And then there would have been trouble.
Yep.
You had, and you would again, like you remembered 3 shots.
Mm-hmm.
I still love it. It's still beautiful.
If you had succeeded on that, again, that's not a terribly difficulty for the level that you're at. Difficult, but not impossible.
Not impossible,
But
but it's a little
improbable.
more. Yeah, it's a little more loaded when you have the Fae involved as well. It's like there was no
Absolutely.
good outcome if I didn't succeed like far beyond what I would need to.
Honestly, you outwitting the Fae is way more impressive than you actually defeating him at the game he set for you. You beat him at his own at a different game.
My favorite part is that as a character, intelligence is one of my lowest stats.
That's why you carry a sword. Oh,
Yep,
wait.
or a bow
Wait.
rather in this case.
No, hopefully Ginny D doesn't come after us for stealing her bit.
You weren't the only one that I saw around the table. Like everyone was a little bit nervous about this.
It's like we're about to have a throwdown with the Fae.
Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't have come together if Stephanie hadn't just decided she wanted to, change into it. But from there, just she kind of laid the path, and I saw my opportunity, and it all came together.
That's the only time I picked up the book during that encounter. It's like, wait, can she do that?
She can do that.
I just remember
It
I
was
was
like,
trying so hard to subtly get her to change back into it without tipping my hand.
luckily, everyone else was like very intrigued by, or at least were questioning, trying to get you out of the situation. Because I felt that everyone was like scared of the situation.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was just a very disturbing looking thing.
Yeah, 100%.
It is.
It's nightmare fuel, Nick.
I know. Don't blame me. I just stumbled upon. I don't even know what the actual origin of that thing is, and I deliberately do not want to know because
Betsy, did you hear the person that just said he saved the picture in his phone for years to use in some game said not to blame him?
Yeah, the same one that at any given opportunity will remind me of this thing's existence.
Yes. But don't blame him.
Oh, never. I never would.
again, I didn't create. Okay, I created the rules around the creature, but that was depicted by someone long ago, and I do not want to know what they actually saw.
But Nick, you chose to keep the picture and use it.
He's got you there.
This was all a willing choice that you made.
This is true.
So this is your fault.
Well, hopefully, whatever that thing was is long dead.
You'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
You want us to think that. We know better, Nick. We've been players in your games long enough to know you do not let a good adversary go unused.
Especially one that could come back.
At any time, wanting a rematch.
I mean, that is the nature of the Fae.
It's a good thing I'll have my legal team ready.
That's right.
Between all of us, we'll figure something out.
Even if you didn't bring that up as one of the glorious stories, it's definitely one I would have brought up because I was incredibly impressed with that. It was both a team effort, but also it was like a situation that I generally saw all of you guys kind of struggle with in terms of like, oh, we don't want to hit it, but we don't want to mess up with this game, but we also don't think he's gonna play fair. It's like, and then you figured out with Stephanie's character how to work around it.
It was one of those where, it couldn't have gone better if I'd actually planned it.
Even I had to be like, wait, can she do that? And it's like I figured out that she could, and that gives another thing into her repertoire if she ever needs the reason to can become Trimble Grimbol.
I know she's done it.
Yeah, she's done it at least once.
I think a couple times just to fuck with people. It's a good distraction.
And for those on YouTube, you'll be able to see the image.
I'll put it on our website or something and link it in the show notes too.
Because I do remember how visibly aghast some of you guys were.
Yeah, because it was horrifying, Nick, and we've never forgiven you and we never will.
Some things cannot be unseen once they've been seen.
Yep, I mean, Batman v Superman, once you've seen it, can't be unseen. Trimble Grimbol, once you've seen it, can't be unseen. Yeah,
Again,
I just compared you to a Zack Snyder movie, Nick.
Ooh, that's rough.
that hurts. If I still had a heart left, that would break it.
Shouldn't you be talking in slow motion, Nick?
while Hallelujah plays.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I haven't saw my grayscale yet.
Okay, well that's fair. That's
Mm-hmm.
fair. Plus we have 2 more guests to go through before we can really bully you and end the show.
It's
That's
true.
true.
Oh, Betsy, you know what I just realized?
What?
The last guest segment is Stephanie. And we close
Ooh.
out the show with bullying Nick.
Nick, I'd say I'm sorry, but at this point, you just expect it.
It's a living.
We love you, Nick.
I know, but like
We do it out of love.
anything else you want to say about that event or about like how that impacted your character and how you felt about how that, if anything, changed in how you played your character after such a very important event?
Yeah, I mean, if one thing, it's just something to keep in mind for the future if I'm ever in a similar situation. But I think the big thing was just I had no idea if that was even going to work. And just the fact that it paid off, it's like further encouragement to try weird things and throw it at the wall and see what sticks and deal with the consequences later.
Also, I think it encourages a lot of the players to start like comboing, as I would call it, like seeing what like I can do this, you can do this. How can I sort of use what I can do to?
Yeah, like there's no way it would have worked without, Stephanie helping me out. So it was a lot of like combining skills and ideas.
And again, all she was like asking like, "Well, can I turn into him?" And it's like I had to look that up, and I said yes, and then she turned into him, and it's like, "Oh, that's cool that she could do that." But I also said, like, "You don't get any of his powers." It was like, you recognize the fact that that's the important fact, that she was him.
Yeah, like it was very much just kind of a light bulb moment. And I know like you guys probably attest to this at games, like I will frequently, make suggestions to other players if I see something fun or interesting or, sometimes even just a way to break the game.
Honestly, that's kind of what is a good encouragement, like, it's always, like, try to ask questions. The worst they can say is no.
Rewind to my saying that you're my favorite bringer of RPG shenanigans. And I really love it when I'm on the player side and we both get to just riff off of one another.
It's true. It's even better when it's you, me, and your wife all at the same time.
Yes, when the 3 of us start bouncing off of one another. I was about to say I feel sorry for the GM.
I don't think we can put some of those stories on YouTube, though.
No, we could start an OnlyFans.
I was gonna make a comment, but I don't know if I should. You know what I was
Yeah,
going to say.
yeah, we'll leave it for after because I
Leave it
we're
ambiguous.
we're not monetized on YouTube yet, but I don't want to get demonetized in the future.
Be monetized before you're even monetized in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not our fault that, we all use the same brain cell and that brain cell resides securely in the gutter.
Yep, we are in the gutter.
In my defense, I have to filter myself all day, every day at work.
That's fair.
The problem when you
That
work
is
with
definitely fair.
toddlers.
It's tough for me the one day a week that I go into the office, when I even go in that one day a week, being around other human beings that aren't, related to me, I have to filter too. It's like, "Oh, man."
You have to be a person.
Yep, I have to act like a grown up,
Gross.
very much so.
Same thing. I have to do like meetings and stuff like with people. It's like, wow, I really wish I could just let loose in this, but I know that decorum and I gotta wear a tie, and it's like I would rather use this tie for so many different things.
Yeah, I frequently tell my kids not to grow up because it's not worth it. All you end up having to do is pay your own bills and make your own doctor's appointments and send your own adult emails. It's awful.
Oh God,
Yeah, it's horrible.
that's your glory story. And we gladly have you come back for future ones, as
Yes,
you've had several others in different games, whether you know them or not.
we would be glad to have you back anytime you wanna come back. Doesn't have to be a Glory Stories episode.
Well, thank you.
Thank you once again for joining us, Betsy, and for sharing, we're gonna have to I'm gonna have to come up with a groovy name to give your glory story and put on the timestamp and up on screen. But
I'm sure you guys will figure something out.
yep.
Yeah,
But thank you for sharing it, and we hope to have you back soon. And we will definitely be seeing you around the table this weekend and next weekend and the weekend after that, and
And
the
the
weekend
weekend
after
after
that.
that, and the weekend after that, and the weekend after that.
Until I'm 90.
Until you're 90. Thanks, Betsy.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
That was an awesome RPG glory story from Betsy. But
Yeah.
now we bring on our next player guest, someone that we have spoken about before in many glowing terms. I consider Bryan to be an RPG glory story in and of himself, having watched his progression from a small child to now, as we were just saying, he is now an adult. So,
Or slightly longer child.
no, he's an adult, Nick. You and I are the big kids. But welcome to the show, Bryan.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Well, it's all facts. It's all facts. I know you've told me that you've been listening to the show since I told you about it, and so you have heard us speak about your progression. How we have watched you. How old were you when we started in the game at Docks in Jeff's game?
I think you were right
Oh,
when you said 12, because I'd been doing it about a year then. I think you were right when you said 12.
So from about 12 till now 18, 19,
20.
20. See, we're old, Nick.
yeah, I know that. We're ancient.
We're
That's why we have.
ancient.
That's why we have so. That's why we have so many spell slots.
No, I see you lose spell slots when you get older. This isn't like leveling up. You level down as you age.
Oh
that that
no!
that's why we take naps now.
I thought we called those short rests to recover our spell slots.
Yes, because we don't have as many.
Oh
Anyway, now
no!
that we have riffed on being old for a while, Bryan, when we put out the call for people to come to us with RPG glory stories from the player side, you were the first person who said, I want in.
I was.
You
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 were.
volunteered as tribute.
It doesn't have to be a story from one of our tables. What story do you bring us, Bryan? What is your glory story?
Well, I've actually got one, as you referenced previously. I'm off at college doing my own thing now, so I definitely have a couple of those stories to bring with me.
Awesome.
So, it's one of those that I bring to you today.
Oh.
Ooh. And I don't have popcorn. I am unprepared.
So, bit of background. As I said, off doing my own thing. By this point, I'd been GMing for well, several months on my own, really game mastering pretty much full time. A couple of times I've got campaigns running consecutively, and really at this point, aside from what I've been doing occasionally with Far Orbit, with you, Daryl, that's been about the extent I've actually gotten to do stuff as a player. For the most part, I've been GMing, and while that is welcome, after a while, it does get to be a bit of a weight. You do need to go back to being a player every once in a while to be a better GM.
Yes. Yes, Nick is glad that Robert and I have stepped in and started GMing games because Nick gets Nick gets to be a player, and you've seen on camera Nick's game room. Nick gets to sit someplace other than behind the table in the GM spot.
It is fun to just play a character again. Because
Yeah.
I've been the Forever DM for a long time.
Just for grinsies, give you a laugh here, Bryan. This past Sunday, for the second time in the same Walking Dead campaign, I killed Nick. I
But
killed him in session 0.
and I would say that that's mostly a mix of bad luck and my character's choices. And this was entirely my character's choices that got me into this situation. But it's like I don't regret it at all. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, I've had players that have had a couple of deaths in a single campaign. I was just talking to my players before I came on about some of their favorite stories. It's too bad you didn't have me on when you guys were talking about vehicles, because one of my players had a character that did not realize the disparity between personal scale damage and vehicle scale damage and was quickly
Oh,
smattered on the tarmac.
I had that happen before with an individual who was a former, who is currently active duty National Guard, and assumed that Star Wars weapons correspond to regular world weapons. So, like a American missile launcher can take down a tank. Like, no, but just the average like cannon from a regular Star Wars repulsor tank can crater you.
So I've definitely have my fair share of GM stories. And if you guys ever do another GM glory story, you guys will need to invite me on because I've got a ton of those.
You'll
But
be welcome on anytime, sir.
but as for now, we're telling my
Yes.
stories about me as a player.
Yes.
So
So
yes, let's see what you have to bring to the table. And if you have a fun idea for a title for it, I'm sure Daryl could make a cool little graphic for it.
Yes. Otherwise, I'm going to have to make up a title to put a graphic on it.
so several months of being the only GM, uh, a campaign opens up called Scum and Villainy, pretty appropriately titled. It's going to be an Edge of the Empire campaign. Running around just doing criminal stuff. Pretty self-explanatory, and I'm pretty eager to get to step back into the role of the player. This is also my opportunity to let loose with any of the energy I've had built up as being a GM and get back to being my own calculus of chaos.
Honestly, that's kind of why I feel that most of my characters die. It's like I'm usually so focused on calculating coldly and creating these scenarios that are supposed to be controlled. Like that's why my decisions as a player often come up with like, no, I'm gonna do this because I wouldn't expect to do this anyone to do this in my campaign.
Yeah.
Of
So my
course,
first
it realizes the fact that like, oh, that's because they're smart.
so my first concept for a character is actually a Skakoan legal commando. Skakoan, lawyer by
Oh,
day,
Ooh.
commando by night. It's an actual thing. Look it up. Wikipedia. It's a thing.
also you get to be the techno union.
So that was a lot of fun. I threw that character together, but then I thought about it, decided it's an Edge of the Empire campaign. I hadn't had too much of a chat with the GM about was he looking to adhere strictly to Edge of the Empire, or were branches like Age of Rebellion a bit more open? So I decided to set that aside for the moment. I've still got it though, and really eagerly waiting to get to play it someday.
I will say though, they are very. That's a character that has a very good chance of exploding in popularity and having a explosive end.
So from there, my next concept, and the one I ultimately ran with, was Numbaran, lightly inspired by my Pantoran pirate from one of your campaigns, Daryl. I wanted to
Yeah.
get to
Love
be
that
a,
character.
yeah,
I remember you telling me about that in
yeah,
passing.
wanted to get to be a bit of the face for the party because that meant I could take charge when needed to, but could also stand back and not be big heavy weapons frontline guy, so I wasn't stealing spotlight. Both the GM and a lot of the players were new to the Star Wars role playing game system, so I did want the opportunity for other people to get to step forward, but being able to represent the group wasn't the worst thing.
Oh, and honestly, like that's especially in a new group of players, most would either lean towards support or heavy weapons. Faces are usually like the places with more experience or just the extroverted of the group would normally gravitate to. But most new players would either go like, well, someone has to fight and they have to be strong, so they make strong fighters, or they're like, well, someone has to like keep everyone healed, so we got to go with a healer guy.
I usually tend to gravitate towards face characters or occasionally guy with a big gun anyway. See my commando droid. So those tend to be the camps I fall into.
But I can understand why you he's designed to take the face character in order to allow them that are also new to the system, because that's usually where usually when you get into like the more like face sort of slash characters or more diverse type of characters are those that have played before, but most would gravitate to like your, if we're using D&D terms, yeah, your fighter and your cleric. They know that they're important to the party, and therefore they'll be like, okay, I don't know how to play this, but I know that they have to be there.
So again, ran with an Umbaran, which was actually my original idea for the Pantoran. Those were the two I was between at the time: Pantoran and Umbaran, Pantoran and Umbaran. Ultimately went Pantoran and figured, well, let's take Umbaran, run with it now. It gives me the opportunity to do another riff on the same sort of character, but this time, it's Edge of the Empire. I get to be a bit more scoundrelly. I get to be a bit more mischievous. So, as part of that, we end up breaking out of prison, which my one line in my character's backstory of why they were in prison was she was pursuing maybe a bit of light stalking Ponda Baba, the walrus guy from New Hope.
Yeah.
So that already tells you all you need to know about the character.
Yes.
Panda Baba.
So from there, we broken out of jail, ended up on Nar Shaddaa, taken some jobs with the Hutts, fought the Empire, captured an Imperial, sold them into slavery, the usual train of things.
That's what it is. That is pretty classic. I'm surprised you already haven't started stealing in spice. I'm pretty sure that's on the way.
Funny you should say that.
Did Nick just tee you up?
He did.
I have been running these games for a while. That's usually the progressive pattern.
But our missions were being paid pretty much in spice. And as a result of this, I did get the idea of, so what if we could get some spice manufacturing going? But for the time being, we'd been routed through the Hutts to a local gangster who went by the name of Ma. She had a much smaller territorial outreach than the Hutts, but was definitely in a position to give us missions, the usual dues. Until, of course, some of us got a little unsatisfied with our place. Now, as I said, the group is all new and had a bit of trepidation about doing anything too bold and daring, so I did end up taking the forefront on a few of these things, and ultimately was able to make some choice maneuvers. I believe we were meeting Ma after one of our recent and invariably successful missions, and made some inquiries of the GM of, so, how many goons does she have around protecting her? Just rough numbers. And of course, numbers were given. Ma was nicely tied up, chatting with several members of the party, just making conversation in the other
And
room.
as a long-term GM, I will say that to the audience at home, numbers, as much as I loathe them, are dangerous when you give them out to players, especially those that know what the numbers mean.
So I start, going around. There's probably a few dozen of these guys handy, more present throughout the block. But I just start going around, seeing if I can, lure some people back to the ship in small groups, start incapacitating them, the usual, and just, one at a time, group by group, I managed to whittle these guys down and ultimately get a bit of a coup going.
Right on.
And so
I like this.
And this ends up having a pretty quick turnaround, as sure enough, I'm able to, my Umbaran is able to swoop in, take Ma hostage, and effectively take control of the group. Not much to it. Most of the guards have been dealt with discreetly. Our group suddenly now has a lot more resources. And from there, I'm able to tell
a bloodless revolution.
Yeah. Easy enough trick. We'd pulled something similar on another planet a couple sessions earlier. And yeah, it worked out kind of like a charm. And that's the other thing. We were kind of beginner characters. I think I was in this campaign for maybe half a dozen sessions. So I'm working with some pretty beginner level roles here, trying to really just play to my strengths and see what I can make happen, and it goes off beautifully.
Yes, there's always the idea of like level and power is supposed to be like a sort of like grades and percentages in real life, but it's like also in real life those are pointless. What's really is like what you use your skills and knowledge for. You could leverage like a level 2 skill in one ability into actually taking over a smaller individual and then building that into a larger network of smaller individuals. But the larger the network, the more people involved.
And if you take into account a well built character with maybe a couple of racial bonuses and some choice talents in mind, you can actually get a lot done in this system.
Absolutely.
My big thing whenever anyone does the Star Wars role playing game, specifically the current one now owned by Eds, but also goes by the FFG Star Wars system colloquially, don't neglect your talents. A good talent can literally change a role or change what you can do.
I was in a conversation online not too long ago talking about this system and Genesis, since it's the same mechanics, that about how we've seen people with, just one or two greens in a particular skill, the way the roles work, all the negatives can come up blank
Yeah.
and you can still succeed even if you have minimal skill in something. Just that's the way the dice work.
Honestly, in going back to one of my early campaigns, one of the characters was playing basically a barbarian, a low class species that has no knowledge. And for the fun of it, they would always be like, "Oh, I'll do a knowledge check," and it was basically because the other one of the players in the group was playing basically a smart guy, and he would have like great intelligence. He would fail, then he was like, "You know what? I'm gonna give it a shot." Would succeed every time. It's like, meanwhile, he's like gnawing on the bone of an enemy. It's like, "Oh, I know those guys," and just rattles off like several facts. While the other guy's like, I can't think about these guys."
That's the beauty of the system. From
Yep.
there, any of the turncoats that my Umbaran got to our side, I just sent them out and basically said, get the rest of them to join us or exterminate them. And there were a lot of exterminations that day. But by the end of it, I just took what was a small single player coup and completely upended whatever organization the GM had in mind. And from there, again, as we had been previously paid in spice, production began. As I alluded to before, this campaign, or at least my participation in it, didn't go on for too very long, but I ended up leaving said campaign with 15 death sticks, 22 doses of glitterstim, 2,000 kilos of Sansana
Santana.
spice,
Ooh.
and a dream. And that is my RPG glory story.
I love that. I love it.
And again, like it's a very classic like turnaround. It's like all you need to do is just have the gumption sometimes. If
I mean,
opportunity is around, and a good GM creates opportunity, even if it's not obvious. And but you were able to, like as you said, you mentioned that you tried something, succeeded on a similar on a mission outside of this area, so that you knew that it's possible, and that gave you the chance to replicate that. And it just so happened to be a much more successful venture than the previous venture.
and Nick can't relate at all to a group of players thinking outside the box and derailing an operation that he had in mind. Not at
Uh,
all.
Actually, take a look at our previous RPG glory stories for that information.
I mean,
Excelsior.
Nick, how many times have I been part of derailing something that you had in mind?
Um, Well, I ran out of fingers and toes like a year ago.
Okay, as long as you remember that. No, that's awesome, Brian. I love that, and hopefully that GM has in mind that if you should ever go back to that group, if they're still playing it, to give you the opportunity to say, okay, what has happened to this character in the meantime? You you could come walking in, decked out in all of this stuff, and
The
you are
finery that
yeah, you walk
come in
in
with
and
a ship with some stylish clothes.
yeah, you walk in and you're a mix between some cartel person and Lando, and strut in and like, oh, what have you guys been up to?
But also, I do hope that your GM is also listening and also learns from this experience. If this wasn't what they
Oh,
intended for things, I do hope that they also learned that this is also something that they should be proud of. Uh, your players
absolutely.
are maybe 5 moments in my entire long history, and only two of them relate to the games that we've ever played in Daryl. That I've ever said like, no, I didn't like that experience for what had happened. But most of them is like, oh, I'm so cool. Glad that you guys figured something out, or so different, or exceeded my expectations, or saw things from a point of view that I couldn't. So I hope that they are also listening and they learned that, like, if they felt that this was like you, it wasn't you going against them. It was you using the rules as they were, and that if they felt it was against it, they'll learn from that lesson, but also accept that, like, yeah, this is what players should do. To go back to Master Yoda in the Star Wars movies, mastery is creating those that will go beyond us.
The moral of the
We
story
are
being
what they grow beyond.
yes.
Yes.
And never underestimate your players.
Or
Never,
droid.
never underestimate your players. Although you sometimes GMs can be sneaky.
This is true.
I'm not saying that I took advantage of a player in Walking Dead totally bluffing some mobsters that I can make a cure and then trying to come up with something and making an entirely new strain of ultra virulent living walkers. No, I'm not saying that at all.
Fun times.
Oh, yeah.
We
Oh, yeah.
we
And
have we miss you because we have fun times here.
yes, we need to get you in some more of our games, and we need to get you to Gamer Nation Con with us sometime.
Oh,
Yes, we
you
do.
will you would love Gamer Nation Con, and we got plenty of games going on currently, and we're closing up some games and starting up some games.
Yep, we need to get you in some more, whether it's in person or online. But I want to see you at Gamer Nation Con.
Honestly, and I think you would love
Nick,
it. They
Nick,
would love you there.
Nick, I want to put Bryan at one of Steve's tables.
Honestly, like any combination of any of us with him, we might actually finally get to break him.
We need to get you there. It's usually the first full weekend in April after after Easter. So keep an eye on the calendar. They haven't given the official dates for next year. They've just given the theme. So I will keep you posted.
But we definitely would be excited. I think you would
Yep.
love it.
Love to be there.
Yep. So thank you again for joining us, Bryan. Like I said a little earlier, you are welcome back anytime. Toss us a message if you have any particular topics that you would love to discuss with us, and we can arrange.
Same with any of your players and GMs that they know, and not to be a shill, but let them know that if they know about this podcast, they could probably help them with their players and their GMs, because that's kind of the intention
Yep.
of this.
Thanks again, and we will see you next time. And we should be posting a Far Orbit here soon, so we'll see you at the table soon.
I'll see you.
We're old, Nick. Bryan is 20. We're old.
I
No,
know.
Bryan cannot be 20.
It's not allowed.
There's another voice that has joined us for our concluding RPG glory story, and it is a
Yes, because
voice
you had to save the best for last.
that's right. I was about to say it is a voice that I have the distinct pleasure of hearing every day. It is my lovely wife Stephanie bringing
Hello.
her RPG glory story to the podcasting airwaves of the How We Roll Gaming podcast. Hello, my dear.
Hello.
Hello, Steph.
Hey, Nick.
So I think I know what story you're bringing because Nick demanded it and even gave it a name.
It would be the story that of them that I know that he would love to tell.
Yes.
Because he has brought it up without provocation before.
I'm sorry that I loved my badass Mandalorian character.
Oh
What
no,
can I say?
that is not a criticism. It is the fact that I just knew that's if given the choice of story, that's the one you would want to say.
Yes, because apparently there were some pretty there were, well, I mean, I know there were, but there was even you guys, tell the stories of my Mandalorian sometimes.
We do. I think we've even mentioned it on the air a couple of times, but
In passing,
let,
but never
let's
in detail.
never in detail. So let's hear it straight from the source in the story that Nick has demanded be called the Ballad of the Badass Mando.
Yes, and in the story of the badass Mando, there were, let's see, I'm trying to remember.
And if you require like some starting off points from the GM that was me at the time, just let me know when you need like some context to put you back in the mindset.
Yeah, I'm just trying. Honestly, I can't even remember the name of my Mandalorian character. I know that's horrible.
Raven.
Raven, that's
Raven.
right. That is right. I knew it was something like that. That's bad when you can't even remember your character, but when you play in as many campaigns as I do,
And this has been a few years back.
it has been, and I really like the character, so, I really hope that, we can do a catch up on them.
That is still in the works if I can get back in with other Xander, but back on track.
Yes. But okay, so this my Mandalorian character that I played was originally loosely going to be based, well, I should say I got the idea from the character that Gina Torres Gina Torres voiced in which show was
On
it?
Rebels.
On Rebels. She was kind of based off of that, and then I just kind of, took her in my own direction. But she was very standoffish, very did, whatever she wanted to do, didn't really give two flips about, what other people thought.
Loved explosives.
Loved, yes, I loved blowing things up, and she really, really loved the Verpine Bond Gauntlets, one of the most broken items in Star Wars.
And
And
I think her blood was what 75% alcohol.
yes, because she was constantly drinking Mandalorian whiskey or whatever. Always had a flask in her hand. But what started it was we were on, where were we? Like Tatooine, I
It
think.
was Tatooine,
And
and I can give context for the
yeah,
mission.
go ahead and give context for the mission because I vaguely remember the mission. I've slept a little since then.
Yes, the mission was they basically were trying to find a legendary starfighter commander from the time of the Clone Wars who was hiding out in the deserts of Tatooine. But a bunch of bounty hunters hired by the Empire were also looking for him. So they were in a race against time as a whole group called the Special Missions Group, which included a gunslinger, a expert spy assassin, and a diplomat who was gonna ease things out in the history books. and Armando. But that's the setup. That they're there to find this hidden individual, and they did some investigating in the town of Mos Eisley.
And I don't remember if this was before or after, but our group got double crossed. We tracked
And you
them
went
down.
to a water tower.
Yes, and got double crossed. We were, pinned down in a firefight, whatnot. And I found out who double crossed us. They were um, at
The
a
Mos Eisley
at
Cantina.
the Mos Eisley Cantina, which we tracked them down. We went there. I pretty much did the Captain America. If anybody wants to leave, you should probably do it now line.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And the rest of the team stayed outside and pretty much just kicked everybody back into the bar that tried to leave. And I took out everybody in the bar with extreme prejudice.
I only gave you a couple rolls for that, and they were all like heavy crits.
Yeah, they were heavy crits because again, Verpine Bond gauntlets.
So like you were, yeah, this would not have been able to been shown in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, no, it would have been like it would have been like in Kill Bill where it
Yeah,
went
more
to
of a
it would have gone to
Tarantino.
black and white. Yeah, it would have had to go to black and white because of the amount of blood. And then at some point we're leaving.
Because you're following the leads to
Yeah,
go in.
we're leaving and we're flying over the desert, and Nick in all of his infinite wisdom, just as a piece of set dressing, is like, oh look, there's what was it, a crate dragon,
A pair
or
of them
yeah, a pair of crate dragons, just out.
attacking the bounty hunters that had bought the larger land speeders, and they were being like accosted by them. It's like,
So I decide, like I said, Nick is just like, okay, it's just set dressing, it's not meant to do anything.
because you're using your ship. If you were using like your land speeder, you would have ran through that. It would have been like an encounter, sort of like ducking your way through that.
Yeah. So Nick's
But I also
trying
know
to.
you.
Yeah. So I'm like, I want to kill it. So our ship hasn't left the planet yet. We're still,
Oh, it's just flying over there. It's in the
just
atmosphere.
flying over it. And so my Mandalorian jumps of
The back
the
landing bay.
out of the back landing bay on
Without
top
telling anyone.
without telling anybody. Yeah, I just jump out, and again, it's one of those. Did she just jump out with a
Yeah.
parachute? Yes.
It too was like Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Did she just jump out of the speeder? And did she have a jetpack? No, she did not.
Is he wearing a parachute? No. No, he wasn't.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten my jetpack yet, so I
And you're
jump
coming
out.
down with a massive axe.
Yes, I did have a big frickin' axe at the time. And so I jump out on top of this thing. Again, thank you to the most broken piece of equipment in Star Wars. And land on top of this crate dragon. And again, I have to, roll to, try to take it out because it is this massive
By
animal.
terms of
And
size, it is roughly like 100 times the size of you.
yeah, and I managed to take it out solo while the rest of the crew is
They have to
um
use the ship and all of their weapons to take out the other one.
yeah, cuz the other one gets a little upset because I took out its friend.
But you are able to just like carve into it right in the right places. There's multiple video game references that we made during that, but it's like you just took it down.
And so yeah, I took it out
And
solo.
you carved it up, got the pearl, got some cool armor, got a piece of it to put in your base.
Yeah, because I did. Yeah, I did make armor out of the parts of the great dragon. Yeah.
That wasn't the end of it. You still had to finish the job because one of the bounty hunters was fake Boba Fett,
Yes, fake Boba Fett, and I think
otherwise known as Jodo Cass. And he accosted you guys a couple times, always flew off, which annoyed you plenty of times during,
yes.
because this was like a over the course of, this wasn't one session, this was maybe like 4 sessions.
Yeah, I think so.
But then you finally did get to confront fake Boba Fett.
Yes, and I believe I dispatched him with much prejudice.
Very much
I
with
I
prejudice.
do I
Very
do
much
remember
prejudice.
exactly. It was like you brought him to his knees and you just decapitated him in a whole swing.
Yeah. She also had some anger issues. So, there was that.
Before you left, because you had to leave through the Mos Eisley Cantina, and that's the final part of the story. And I think you were contacted by someone that you had worked for in the past, Jabba the Hutt,
Yes.
who
But
basically
my
said,
character also wasn't allowed back on Mos Eisley again. So,
treat with you, we will not have any issue with you. Just never come back to Mos Eisley.
yeah. I don't think
So
I don't think any of my other characters ever got completely banned from a planet before. That was pretty cool though.
Yeah, I don't recall any of them ever being banned like that either.
Yeah, I can't think of any characters in any of our campaigns that ever got completely banned from a
well,
planet.
that's honestly, can you blame them? They assume that was actual Boba Fett. Only you knew it was like fake Boba Fett because he was
Yeah, only
going
I knew
by
that it was
Boba Fett.
fake Boba Fett. Yeah.
You killed a crate dragon. Your friends killed another one. You destroyed an entire bar, terrorized an entire city, and Jabba the Hutt was just saying like, "Okay, you just can't come here because you're not good for business. Just don't come back."
Yeah, which was fine because,
You didn't have to, but
yeah, I'm not a big fan of Tatooine because sand, it gets everywhere. It's coarse and it's irritating.
What, you don't
but there
like
was
sand?
No, I don't like sand.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
But it was an event. Again, we're describing it in the details right now, but the amount of difficulty that has to go into to do all of that, those events were incredible. And like you were rolling. Again, this is multiple sessions, roughly around like 4 to 3. But
Yeah,
you
3 or
were
4
rolling,
sessions. Yeah,
but
it
you were
was.
rolling consistent at the right moments, crit after crit after crit.
Yeah, because I wasn't using your cursed dice.
Yeah, you were
Probably
using the
consider
dice roller, the
Yeah,
dice app.
I was using the dice app, which sometimes is a friend and sometimes not so much.
which allows it to be fair, but it's like I'm not discounting. Like there were a lot of great moments during that Tatooine arc for everyone, but you kind of outshined it by sheer amount of audacity and,
Yeah.
as the kids say, aura.
Is that what the kids say?
Is that what the kids say?
I'm trying to figure out
Quick,
what the
get
kids
Brian back on the line.
but either way, it was an incredibly incredible display, and what's kind of cemented what I really liked about your character. You saw that I put that out there. It's like
Yeah,
I didn't even.
and I don't think that you had any intention of us doing anything with it. You're just like, "Oh, look, set
It's some
dressing.
flavor.
It's some flavor. It's set dressing." And then you forgot who you were playing with.
I forgot who I was playing with, and you were like, you looked at me.
Challenge accepted.
Yes.
I looked at you, and then I think you just asked like, "Is the ship door open?" Like, well, you're on the ship, and you can open the door.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like you said that. I said, okay, I'm describing the event, and then I think the whole point was like everyone else is like focused forward, and then like that's when it had the moment. It's like, wait, where is he?
Yeah, where did she go? Yeah,
Oh, she jumped out,
she just jumped out of the ship without a jetpack on top of a crate dragon.
and they had
Okay.
to use all their powers to like take it down with a ship powered weapon. Meanwhile, you're just hacking into it like
it's butter.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was so much fun. That
It was
was
it, honestly one of the best as a GM, but also I know that you don't really show a whole lot of like emotion at times. I saw
yeah.
you smile so wide the whole time.
Yeah, cuz it's like I know when I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do, everybody's like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "But it's." I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
I low key encouraged it, but it's also like, okay, this could go badly, but also I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah, this
If
could
it succeeds, this is
yeah,
cool.
yeah, this could go really bad, or this is going to be something that we talk about for the ages.
A RPG glory story, which it is, because but also you had like the biggest smile I've ever seen in a long time.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
couldn't
it
help
was.
but be like, you were locked in, you were
I was.
having fun.
I did. I pulled. I did a. I did a Xander lean, and like I leaned into it. And was just
And
okay.
then
Yeah, let's have some fun.
I know that like deep down that this story is in there with you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was like the most fun that I had playing in an RPG because it was. I was still relatively new. I mean, I hadn't been playing for long. I think
Yeah,
this was maybe the first like real campaign that
yeah.
I had been in. So
And you've been having fun like experimenting with stuff like but this was like your a moment that like purely like I didn't set up for you. Ironically.
yeah, but I think there was a couple of more during in that campaign that
Then
where
I
she
did put
was
in some
yeah that
doing
you like
stuff.
that you wrote in specifically for like my character to do wacky stuff in, but this
And those
one
were
was just
fun. But this was like, without this, like, I wouldn't have thought, because again, I was having trouble. Like, I want to give everyone like their thing, and I've been giving people their things. It's like, what if I just threw something off the wall and you dug it?
yes. You threw something against the wall, and my character was like, "Yes, please."
I just wish I could do that again because I miss that smile and how like excited you were. I'll admit I've seen it a bit, but nowhere near as much. But if I can get that smile back again, I'll be a happy camper as a GM. Because everyone was like looking at you and they were like, "Oh!" when you got the multiple crits on that.
Yeah, when I was taking out like the stormtroopers and the people in the cantina, yeah.
It's
I
like
think that was another lean in. Everybody was like, "Okay, let's see if she can do this, or if we're going to be, bringing her out in a stretcher. Are we going to have our first character? Are we going to kill our first character?"
well, you're just coming out as like you're just drenched in gore, and it's. I think I made a joke about the bartender popping in his head and being like, "I won't charge you, just leave."
Yeah, you're good. Just please don't kill me. Yeah, but like I said, I think there were other things that I had in that campaign that were just as
Amazing.
amazing, but that was the one that was just
It's become one of those every group, just about every good group has
The
at
one.
least one of those legendary stories that hangs around for years and years and is retold and is told to new players that join. It's told to it's told in other gaming circles that you run in, and this is one of those stories.
Like if I had to define your character Raven, this was it. The hard drinking Mando that got kicked out of the Mos Eisley canteen out of massacring it, and got kicked off the planet after killing not Boba Fett, ate Krayt Dragon solo, and Jabba the Hutt said, "Yeah, just leave."
just leave. Yeah. Yeah. It was so much fun. Like I said, that was the most fun that I had had.
I do wish to one day recapture, maybe not the exact same way, but a similar joy.
Yeah, I would like I said I'd really like to revisit the character
Oh,
just
I do want to do a revisit for
just
special
because
missions.
she was just because I had so much fun playing her. I think secretly there was more of me in that character than I thought there was. So,
There was a lot, and again, like considering how you described them initially, like they were, as you said, like pretty simple, but at the end, I did feel like there was something there.
yeah, she evolved. She I think she softened and evolved a little by the end of the campaign.
And we have talked about it. Like, I definitely, if I can get the whole group back together, I think I have at least like,
The whole if we can get the old band back together.
I think I have like a two-part, but it'd have to be a two-part back-to-back weekend. Really give you guys the proper send-off.
Yeah, cuz I don't even remember how it ended.
That's the one where we dropped the ice
Oh yeah,
sheet.
the ice sheet. That's right. I was gonna ask, is that the one with the ice sheet? And oh yeah, because that was also the one that I rode
The Zillow Beast.
the Zillow Beast
The fight of
um
Mythosaur.
to fight a mythosaur. That's right. That was that campaign. Yeah, like I said, I knew that she did something else. I just couldn't remember
Oh yeah,
if it was
there's so much that was going on there, but it's like if I had to pick like the one that would always say like that's Raven.
yeah, that not to, I'm probably gonna owe the mouse some money, but it's one of those That's So Raven.
My mom loved that show.
And, and speaking of having fun, we foreshadowed this with Betsy. As you know, we know that it's near the end of the show when we start picking on Nick, and it's you and me here now.
Oh God, yeah. I'm sorry, Nick.
Oh, don't. It's the rules.
It's
It's
the
the
rules.
rules.
Yeah, the same thing happens when we play, when we're playing in person too. Most of Nick's glory stories is how he, magnificently died doing something incredibly stupid like falling off a ladder.
He didn't die falling off the ladder. He
I
almost
almost
died
That's right. He
multiple
almost died falling off a ladder.
three
multiple
times,
times.
three times.
Yes,
And then he
because of
tried
Star
and,
Wars fall rules.
and then in the final moments of the final session of that campaign, he tried to use biggest fan on the big bad and not only failed but failed horribly with a despair. So instead of the big bad becoming his biggest fan, he became her biggest simp.
Yeah. Was that the one that he got covered in poop in?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the one that you got covered in poop in, right?
Yeah.
We won't talk. We don't talk about that campaign. We won't talk about that.
We are.
Well, I mean, we won't go into much more detail about that. That's gonna be the like RPG, not necessarily horror stories, but this is where things went really wrong.
That's the record scratch. So you're probably wondering how I got here.
Yes, that is.
Oh, that
Yeah.
keep that in mind. That might be a good one for like some of the unusual stories.
I honestly, the way we've set up recording this episode since we had guests, the flow of the conversation hasn't really given us much to pick on Nick about. So
Yeah, other than like I said, the biggest fan backfiring and him getting covered in
Yeah.
poop. That was pretty funny though.
so I guess we'll just dive into the part of the show where, well, first we thank you for coming on,
Of course. I
and
mean,
Thanks.
we
And
live
we
in the
we would
same
hope that
house. I can't believe I haven't been on before, but
there hasn't been a topic really to bring in much in the way of guests. The guests that we have had so far was specifically Chris coming in to talk about Gamer Nation Con.
that's
well,
true.
as you said, there's plenty of stories to talk about, like the Special Missions game, and there's other games you've been in that you probably have some fond memories or thoughts about.
Yeah. There's I think I kind of have a story idea since, totally jumping topics since I'm looking to, start to co-GM a game. I know you guys have done a how to GM a game, but getting like a fresh, brand new, never GM'd anything type perspective.
Yeah, and that's something we could definitely talk about in the future. And just in general, like there's plenty of other things within this podcast and our sister podcast that we'd gladly have you on.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can come on anytime you like, since, like you said, we are in the same house. You hear me talking about what topics we're going to be discussing. So you can always say, hey, I wouldn't mind being on that one. You're welcome anytime.
All right, good.
But we've reached the point of the show now where I say to check out our website at howwerollgaming.com. There you'll find information about our current campaigns, the podcast archive, and links to our merch store and all of our social media presence. And you can also directly support the show through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/howwerollgaming and you'll see our different membership tiers starting at just $2 a month with special recognition on our Discord server and higher tiers giving you on-air credit and discounts at the aforementioned merch store.
And with the Discord access, we have opened that up for both the Star Wars role playing group as well as How We Roll Gaming.
And finally, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, topics you'd like us to cover, or even submit your own RPG glory story, shoot us an email at podcast@howwerollgaming.com and we will gladly read it and take it from there. Until next time, thank you once again for joining us, Stephanie. And as always, I'm Daryl,
I'm Nick.
and this is How We Roll.